Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the Masque of the Boa-Constrictor. So this is an Egungun mask. So this is going to get slightly confusing. Also, I'm getting over a cold, so sorry if I sound gross, which I probably will. This is going to get slightly confusing because there's two different versions of mask that we're working with here. They sound exactly the same when said, but there's M-A-S-Q-U-E, which is what this play is, and there's M-A-S-K. And so when I say Gungun mask, I could actually mean either of them. Mask with the Q-U-E is a type of ritual performance that is not really plot-driven, but is meant to basically sort of act out in a basic way a storyline in which the performances, the music, the dance is much more central than plot, narrative, structure, things like this. And this is not really, but an Egungun mask, M-A-S-K, is an actual physical mask in traditional Yoruba or other sort of West African cultures, and in different cultures, they sort of occupy slightly different but related spaces. For an Egungun mask, this is used during a ritual in which if I understand this correctly, the deity or the spirit or whatever it is represented by the mask literally takes over the person who puts the mask on. So that person ceases to be themselves and they become the embodiment of that deity through the mask. There are other versions of ritual masked drama in Yoruba culture or other West African cultures in which the performer, it's clear that there's a distinction between the performer and the deity, even though they are sort of syncretically intertwined. But I think in a Gungun performance, when the performer dons the mask, they cease to be that performer and they become the deity represented. What happens in the Masque of the Boa-Constrictor? Not really a whole heck of a lot. The basic storyline essentially is something along the lines of there is a hunter who has the power to transform himself into a boa constrictor so that he can hunt his prey. But either he forgets how to transform back or he does something hubristic and the gods sort of refuse to allow him to transform back. And that's really kind of the whole plot line. In this book, the text goes from pages 45 to 47. It's really very, very, very short. Because again, the majority of the focus is on the music, particularly drumming and chanting and dance. And the thing is, this isn't, I guess the closest maybe that we have in modern Western theater would be something maybe would be something maybe like Cirque du Soleil. And this is an older ritual performance from the Yoruba tradition. This is not a contemporary play necessarily. But these kinds of performances, these kinds of masks are still performed in some parts of the world. Africa is one of them. I think East Asian culture still has sort of variations of masks and things like this. But Western conceptions of theater have really kind of narrowed dramatically over the centuries. I mean, we once had a much richer range of performances, including masks themselves. And bits and pieces of these are preserved in more traditional theater, which is actually not more traditional necessarily, but the kind of thing we think of today as theater. Shakespeare's The Tempest has a mask in it when Prospero calls upon the spirits to play these Greek deities who perform this ritual for Ferdinand and Miranda. This is a mask where plot is not really that important. It's primarily about the music and the dance. And so you get those things. But that used to be a theatrical form in and of itself. The tableau vivant was another that's no longer really done. Dumb shows, mummers plays, things like this. And one of the things that's hard about something like a mask, particularly this very, very ritualized mask, and this mask that is really not driven by text, is that it does not lend itself well to being printed in a book, right? In order for theater to be something that can be captured or partially captured more accurately in text, it needs to be dialogue driven. And that may be a good portion of the reason why Western culture has shifted toward text-based theater performances, script-based theater performances, as opposed to things like masks and mummers plays, is because we are a much more print-focused culture than an oral tradition-focused culture. But particularly for places like West Africa, where a big portion of the post-colonial project has included trying to recover pre-colonial art forms and ways of knowing, ways of being, that has led to a resurgence especially in the latter half of the 20th century, led to resurgences of interest in folk culture, oral traditions, storytelling, things like this, as ways of embodied knowing. And so, again, no offense to Simon Gikande and R.N. Sandberg, who created this anthology. It's an excellent anthology. I'm really enjoying it. But the Masque of the Boa Constrictor is not really the kind of thing that you can understand by reading it. It really has to be lived or performed, right? It really has to be something that we can see, we can hear, we can experience the dancers, we can experience the drumming, etc., etc. It's one of those things, like a lot of experimental theater that really depends on sort of visual elements. It doesn't really translate to the page well. So it's cool that it's recorded here because it gives a bit of a sense of what this might be like for people who can't directly access it. Like I am not in any of the countries that have a major Yoruba population, like Nigeria, or Niger, or places like this, but it's just nowhere even close to the same thing. To read what's here, I guess maybe a good comparison would be like reading song lyrics without the music and without the singer's voice actually creating them, right? Reading song lyrics with no sense of what the music might sound like. That's a bit like what reading The Masque of the Boa-Constrictor is. And I mean, I can't, again, criticize Conde and Sandberg for this, because that's the nature of the genre. It is very much a genre that needs to be performed.